right? And so the man feels inferior, the woman feels superior.
That happens a lot.
And when you make, and again, tell me if I'm off base, but when you make that man feel less than a man, I know that's cliche, but when you make him feel like he's not enough, um, then there's a problem in the marriage, because there's going to be a push and pull effect
Oh yeah.
completely. The woman's not going to be happy, the man's not going to be happy, and you've got a catastrophe waiting to explode.
Welcome back, guys. Mike here, Money, Marriage, and Media, and today we're looking for 1,000 subscribers. We're also looking at why are the Miss Independent women failing in marriage. The show is She Critique. The channel is Lapeef. Is it the Lapeef Experience? I don't know. It's Lapeef something. It's Network or Experience. I can't remember which one. Lapeef Experience. It's in the center. There's the logo. Let's go.
The independent woman herself and why she's failing in marriage. The
I
first
thought
part
the
was the man.
Yeah, I
I
thought it
thought we were
was the
talking about the man.
marriage itself. Like, why
Yeah.
is it when a woman who is formally educated is with the man who is not? Like, why those
Right.
marriages don't work? Was that the question? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I don't,
Yeah,
I haven't
someone
read
else.
any stats on that, but just looking at the situations around me in my life and experiences over the past, few decades, um, it's mixed. It really is mixed. I've got several friends who are doing well. They're formally educated, and on an educational level, their husbands they're not equivalent on a formal education level. And some of them are still married and have been married for years, like almost 20 years. And some of them got divorced. Um, so for me, it's a mixed bag. I've seen both, probably just about equivalent. I was trying to think, is there one a little bit more so than the other, just with my surroundings, and not so much. Like I said,
Usually what happens when you have, well, statistically, when that happens, it's just not enough data points. Because most of the time, there is going to be a majority. When there's not, then that's when yeah, there's usually just not enough data points. She just may not know enough people. So it could be, this is what you would call inconclusive.
say really both extremes. One has been married for a few have been married for a little while, and the one that got divorced probably 2, 3 years ago, and she was just telling me actually 2 nights ago that he's on his eighth relationship with a woman since they've gotten divorced, and they were not equally they weren't equivalent education wise. So I don't know. For me, it's mixed.
Hmm.
I missed the
Hmm.
question. Can you?
Of course, can you please start writing these down? Please go get a
Yeah.
notepad right now
Okay,
and
but look.
have asked them
Okay.
about every question that I have.
She's still drunk.
No, no, I'll tell you what it
She
is.
don't remember the
I
question
was
herself.
too, and I didn't
Trying to
drink.
get it together, keeping the
You
questions
know,
to
you know what it
myself,
is?
and she
It's like
loses my
somebody will say something and it'll make me have a thought, and then I go to look up the information.
I probably
So
suck at these panels too.
yeah, that's what it is, because sometimes you guys are saying things and I'm like, oh, and a thought in my head pops up. So then yeah, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that,
And
so
then
I'm sorry.
somebody
So
told me if you get it.
yeah.
So,
So
so
she was
basically, the
saying, oh,
question
go ahead.
is, so
Oh,
basically,
you.
when I read, so we know divorce rates are high. Women are filing for divorce.
Mhm.
And some of the higher divorces in when a woman is of a higher education, like we talked about, when you have to contribute so much more to the household. I'm pretty sure those are
Mhm.
things that have to do with it as well. But what is it about a woman who is formally educated to where, okay, so this is what I'm basing it off of. I saw one where it says that when people have equivalent education, they do pretty well in a relationship. So I took that, and then it said, well, women who are educated, divorce rates are high for people who have degrees. And then I saw another article that said that when you when you marry someone who is not your equivalent, and I'm sure they were talking about education, um, the divorce rate increases.
Mhm.
So we were saying, what is it? Why do you think that is in the psyche of the woman who is the formally educated? Does that make sense? Did that make
Yeah. Mhm.
I think she wants
So
better.
if we look at the way,
Look here,
so
Isaiah says, "Stop playing like y'all don't know." I think they tiptoeing, Isaiah. I
well,
think
yeah,
they are tiptoeing.
yeah, it's a sister code. I can feel it. It's
I
palpable.
feel it too.
Well, no,
But
I was about to say, to me, it makes sense
What is going
because
on here?
when we look at society in general, even the men, the cosign is every show that we have, that the expectation is that the men are supposed to be the lead, they're supposed to be the head of the household, all of those things. So I think when as a woman, the more in our mind, the more that we feel that we are improving, whether that's education, whether it's finances, in those areas, it's automatic that you are going to want to have a mate that is at your level or higher. Typically higher because too, you're always looking for that challenge to, to learn and things like that. So if you marry a man or with a man who you feel is not your equivalent, it's going to be very difficult to maintain a relationship if y'all don't share the same. And when I say values, I'm not just talking about like spiritual values or things like that. It's going to be very difficult when you guys are not, on the same playing field. That makes sense to me.
good. Yep. I got several things to note on this. Several.
Really?
So that boss bitch
Anybody else
narrative.
want to add to anybody? Any of the women want to add their 2 cents to why that they think that is? Let me ask you a question. Let me dig a little deeper into that. Do you think that women with a formal education find it hard to trust his leadership?
Why would that even be a factor in trusting a man?
I could see it, but I think that's ridiculous.
What?
No, see what happens here is that you get trapped in that old mindset of I think this came about with Generation X, where we tie education to we use education as a predictor of success. Unfortunately, new data points have shown that college education is not a good predictor of success. It's not, right? But a lot of times, we spent so many years, so many generations pumping up the college experience and it just became a predictor of income or security that we a lot of times fall back on that, or we think about it subconsciously. But unfortunately, like I said, it's just not true anymore. It's too many. And this leads into another topic about my opinion on college. But hey, too many degrees out there just don't mean anything anymore. So it's not really a good predictor. But a lot of times we think it is, even though we don't talk about it.
No, that was ridiculous. We're talking about the question.
No, it's the yeah. Go ahead.
I don't think so. I think it's about like how we say it's about their record. So my thing is, if you are showing and proving, I don't think the education aspect has to deal with it, has anything to do with it. But I think a lot of times on face value, when you're just meeting somebody, I think that does come into play where especially for a woman, that if you are formally educated and you meet a guy on, like I said, face value, and that he's not, there are some automatic tendencies to think that he couldn't be.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows, like when you go to college, part of that process is just not the education part, but it's also the pruning that comes along with it. Like, just certain things that you're going to learn this, in terms of socially. And so I think when you're meeting a guy who has not been, is just a mindset that comes along with it, that you automatically assume that maybe he's not polished. You know what I'm saying? Until you take the time to get to know them and then say, oh, okay, but yeah, definitely that assumption is there initially if you don't know the person.
I
We're talking about in marriages. There's a reason why
Yeah.
they're leaving. We're talking about in the marriage, not when you initially meet them, because at this point you guys know each other. Y'all
Mhm.
married.
Right. So I was going
I
to say,
think
going back
no,
to
you go ahead, Tim.
going back to that, you're married. I think it was maybe Trigger Mike was talking about it earlier on, and actually the AP also. It goes back to the woman at some point being condescending to the man,
Yeah.
and more so reminding the man that of what he doesn't have, right? And so the man feels inferior, the woman feels superior.
That happens a lot.
And when you make, and again, tell me if I'm off base, but when you make that man feel less than a man, I know that's cliche, but when you make him feel like he's not enough, then there's a problem in the marriage, because there's going to be a push and pull effect.
Oh yeah.
Completely. The woman's not going to be happy, the man's not going to be happy, and you've got a catastrophe waiting to explode.
So
But
I agree
most
with
men
that.
stay in that situation. It's the woman who leaves.
But the man may
Because-
stay in the situation, but it doesn't mean he's committed and dedicated. He can go out.
if it involves children, he's not gonna leave. Men are very logical, and leaving your children because you hate your wife, even to us, and as bad as it sounds, is not logical.
Physically.
It's not, right?
Physically.
Yeah, exactly. It's not logical to
But
us.
mentally, men leave all the time.
Sure, why not? Sure.
Why not?
I would say physically too. There's a lot of fatherless households.
No, they were never there in most of those households.
Yeah.
They
They didn't want the
had
kids to
to
begin
You're
with.
married. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they were never married.
Well,
Yeah, they weren't married, and those guys, most of those didn't want the kids to begin with. They didn't want to have kids to begin with. Look, so what are we talking about here? I think a lot of this has been geared towards education, but it can also be tracked to income. That's what it really is. Because, like I said, the previous generation thought that education has a direct correlation with income. The more education you had, the more money you were going to make. That's why the other thing we have to acknowledge here is that this is very much a female metric that we're tracking here, right? Because men don't necessarily care about how much education a woman has. We do, but it's not as big as it is with women. It's not an attraction trigger like it is for women. So we just have to preference that, because we need to find out what our focus is in this discussion, right? The other thing that's going on here is, it's like I said, they just danced around it, but what we're really talking about is emasculation, right? This speaks to a bigger problem, because ultimately the narrative is that, well, if you're a woman and you have a lot of education or you make a lot of money, no man is going to want you. I don't think that's true. What I do think is true is that that's a different type of dynamic, right? Because ultimately, what are we saying to our daughters here? You know, you got a daughter who likes, who's excelling at math and science to the point where, she could have, she wants to be a doctor when she grows up. But she also wants marriage and family. Well, baby, you got to choose. You can't do both. Men don't want successful women. They don't want ambitious women. I think that's a load of BS. I think what happens is that we don't have enough relationships out there that are used as examples of where women. What do you say with successful women? Well, like I always say on this channel, we have to do a better job of raising our daughters. That means providing better examples, or how to navigate that relationship. Tan talked about it where she mentioned about, there's specific type of women, and it sounded like she was referencing another part of the conversation, but she referenced women who basically emasculate their men, right? Well, we need to do a better job of raising our daughters, and I'm talking to you men out there, so that that's not happening. These things play a part, and this is why I said that, there are several social constructs in our community that are broken, and, they're talking about the confines of a marriage. Marriage is one of the concepts that is broken. We don't have enough examples in this particular conversation. I think what we need is we need to define a couple things. Number one, educated women. If you want to be married, then you need to look for a guy who's going to lead the relationship with the dime, self-discipline, integrity, morals, and ethics. There's way too many men out there who would just try and lead with their wallet. And if you're with a woman who is more educated than you are, that may work, but for the vast majority of average men, it's not going to. All right, you need to lead with something else, and I suggest those 4 categories, because then that woman doesn't have to fight her hypergamous nature, because you outrank her in all 4 of those categories. She still respects you. See how that works? The other concept is that just because you're the breadwinner doesn't make you the leader. Having money doesn't make you a good leader. Leadership skills make you a good leader. So this is why I always suggest men lead with the dime, because then that gives you, again, the woman can continue her hypergamous nature. The other thing that was talked about, what Miss Taken talked about, was different levels, making sure that you guys are here and you're growing. But remember what I said before about a lot of the metrics that they're using, those are female metrics, right? Attraction triggers are based on women, because guys, ambition, not high on the list for us as far as attraction triggers go. So that was part of the conversation that I found interesting. The other thing that is that relationships like that can be prevented if we're fixing the vetting process. Again, another social construct that's falling apart in our community. Because why are you with a guy and you guys don't balance each other out? Like, you're here again, the vetting process will help weed out those scenarios. As men, we do a good job of vetting other men. We do a better job than most women do. And vice versa, too. Women do a great job of vetting other women for being potential wives. But look, I'm starting to ramble on here. This is a great conversation, definitely high level. We need more of these conversations going on. Shout out to the married people on the panel. We got Trigger Mike, Coach K, and Miss Taken. Guys, I'm going to stay ghost to the next time. Peace.